Hey everyone, it's Ethan here with a quick guide on what weapon combinations are the very best to be using in Apex Legends at this very moment. I've taken into account current meta, in other words that's what the pros are using at the moment, but I've also got a few surprises in there as well. I've looked at what weapons will work well together in terms of giving you an option in any type of engagements or firefights that you might come across, and also taken into account combinations that work well for those quick weapon switches. I'll be showing you the information and setups in the firing range, and then a few clips of each loadout in live action. They are in no particular order as I think they all have their own merits and will suit different playstyles. So without further ado, let's hit the range. Okay, so our first combination, as you can see on our screen here, is the Hemlock and the Wingman. Now the first thing that you're going to note here is that they are both heavy weapon ammo types. This is the only weapon combination on the list that share the same ammo, and the reason for that is because we're going to be using the Hemlock in single fire most of the time anyway, and the Wingman is obviously single fire, doesn't use much ammo, so you're not exactly going to be tight on heavy ammo during this. It's not going to be too extreme. The other thing that normally you wouldn't want to use the same ammo type on both guns is because they contain the same attachments as well. The important thing to note here is that the extended mag, the first one you find, that's going to go on the Hemlock instead. A level 3 extended mag on the Hemlock gives it 12 extra bullets, whereas the Wingman only gets 3 extra bullets with it. So the extended mags are going to be Hemlock prioritized with this. Now, I just mentioned here that we're going to be putting it in single fire. That is because we're going to be using this 2 to 4 times scope as well. Now, obviously, you're not going to be able to get all the attachments from the very start of the match, but this is the one you're going to be wanting to build yourself up for, as well as obviously the regular purple ones. We've got the 1 times HCOG Classic on the Wingman, which is pretty important, and then we also have the 4. So it's 2 to 4 times on the Hemlock as well. The reason for that is because the Hemlock is actually pretty good at range, especially if you hit them in the head. If we have a little look at the damage types here, I'm just going to go to this one instead because that one's going to die soon. In the limb, only 17 damage, body 22 damage, but the headshot with the Hemlock doubles that damage to 44. So headshots with the Hemlock are really vital, and this sight really helps you hit them. You can see, even if we go all the way up to here, and you've got the 2 to 4 times on, and you're going to go right into the middle there, it doesn't really dip very much with a Hemlock, not the way that like the Scout does, and so straight in the head, nice and easy, 44 headshot damage. So just having a little look at the damage on the Wingman, you can see here on the leg, 41 damage, torso 45, and the headshot is 94. So huge amount of damage on the headshot with the Wingman there. Moving on to why we're using which sights we are for these guns. Obviously the Hemlock's already quite mentioned. The 4 times is really deadly on there actually, and you can move it to a 2 times if it's a bit of a more of a middling distance. But when it gets to later game and you know that you're in tighter quarters, there's a reason we got the 1 times HCOG on the Wingman. First of all, it's because it's one of the best sights on the Wingman, unless you've not got another longer sight gun, in which case you probably want to put a 2 times bruiser on there instead. But for this combination, the 1 times is perfect. Now, when you're getting into a closer range combat, you are going to hover over your 1 times and you're going to hit X on the Xbox to transfer it over to your Hemlock. Once that is on your Hemlock can now be switched back to burst fire and can be used as a incredibly deadly short to mid-range weapon instead. You can see that 88 damage because the last bullet there hit him in the head. As long as you aim for around the torso, it's going to glide up a little bit with that recoil, and the last bullet will strike him in the head as well. So 1 burst there doing 88 damage. You can imagine how effective that's going to be. And you can see that our Wingman is left blank here, but that's not too much mind really, because if you've got one of the skins like Death Ray or Merciless Wing, you can see the sights are still pretty good with the Wingman anyway. So the reason that this weapon combination is so powerful is because, I mean, you see what it can do at a short to mid-range distance with those short-range distance, the quick fire burst from the Hemlock, as well as switching to a Wingman, grabbing a couple of headshots maybe. But there's also the mid-range as well. You can single fire with the Hemlock pretty well, and it's really effective on either a 2 to 4 times sight, depending on how far away they are, as well as the Wingman. If you've gotten comfortable enough with it, you'll be able to hit things at a medium distance with that. Now, long range, I wanted all these weapon combinations to have an option for that, and this is the option for this, okay? So the Wingman is actually powerful at a long range, but it can be pretty hard to see things usually. Now, with the Hemlock and the sight that it has, it's going to be easier to see the targets with it on that 4 times sight. You can switch to your Wingman there, and you can fire off a shot, and you can see there, hit him for 45 damage. You might even get a headshot if you're accurate enough with it, maybe if you're a little bit of a better shooter than I am. Now, the problem with the wingman at range, usually, even if you can see them fire off a shot, get a hit, they have ran at that point. And wingman, with its slow rate of fire, it's pretty hard to hit moving targets with it. Obviously, when they're standing still, oh, there's a headshot there, it's quite easy. But when they're moving around, it's harder. However, if you switch to your hemlock, with that single fire, 4x scope, this thing fires really quick. And even if they are running those moving targets, you are going to still be able to hit them with at least a few bullets there and hopefully finish them off. So that's the long range option for that. You've seen all the different types that we've got going on there, and we'll leave it there and move on to the next weapon combination just after we watch a couple of clips of this combination in live action.
Enemy making contact. Down. Reloading. I downed an enemy.
There we go. It was enough to get the kill. Okay, so our next combination is the Havoc and the P2020. Now, looking at the combination of attachments here, you can see that we've got the 2 to 4 times sight again on the Havoc, as well as the select fire. The hammer points are what is really essential on the P2020, and you can see we've got the digital threat on there as well. That's personal preference, really. It doesn't really matter what sight you've got on there, but that's just to give me an option in case there's any bangle or smokes around. I can see through them, or caustic gas, anything like that. Obviously, you might not find a hammer point straight away, but that's okay, because at the start of the game, as long as you find that Havoc rifle, that will pretty much be carrying you through most of this anyway. It's only when you then actually find the hammer point attachment or the P2020, then you can start getting this combination going. If you can't find those, then you can just have anything else in that secondary slot for the time being. So the real reason that we're using the 2 to 4 times sight on this again, as well as obviously the select fire attachment, is because we want that longer range shot on there. So you can see here on the 4 times, it's nice and easy to see people, even at a relative distance. And with the select fire attachment, there's 60 damage to the body there. We'll see if we hit the head there. That's 90 damage on a headshot as well. In other words, this thing is pretty powerful at range, with those attachments, of course. Now, the P2020, the hammer point is on here for a very specific reason, because it does a ton of damage once you have taken their shield. You can see here 13 damage at the moment, but then once we get their shields gone, that's 35 damage a shot. That's them dead in 3 shots once you've got their shield down. And you can see the combination with this already. You are going to try and get their armor down with the Havoc. If you run out of bullets after shooting a few of them, you quickly switch to the P2020 and you can fire a couple of shots off to finish them off there. 18 in the clip when you've got an extended mag in this thing. You can fire it pretty quick as well. As you can see, even if you're panicking, you'll get at least a couple of shots on them there. Now, with the Havoc, it is one of the most powerful guns in Season 4, if not the most powerful gun in Season 4. I think it may have even taken the crown of the R99 for that. But what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to come to the firing range and practice a little bit of recoil with it, because it can be really potent at range if you do this. So the recoil here, I'm not pressing anything on my right analog stick, I'm just letting it happen. Now that's on a 4 times sight, so quite a lot there. If you go down to a 2 times sight on this, you can see here, it stays the same. It doesn't really matter which one, but the 2 times sight is what's going to be easier to control that recoil with. The important thing to note is that it goes directly up, near enough. It sways a little bit as you get further up there, but it goes directly up, so that's all you want to pressure against. So if you're in the firing range practicing, you're going to practice holding down on the right analog stick, basically, as you're shooting these dummies. And you can see there, I mean, absolutely just melting those things. This gun near enough like doesn't lose once you get this going correctly. So all it takes is a little bit of practice. Bear in mind, I've not even warmed up on that today, and I'm not the best at shooting, and still managed to get through this anyway. So you can see how deadly this would be. So yeah, just dropping down the armor off one of that will actually kill them, and you can always finish people off with the P2020 if needs be. So again, get the armor off him, and then there you go, a couple of shots with the P2020 finishes it off nicely. That's it really for the Havoc and the P2020. So let's move on and show you this clip in live action, and then we'll move on to the next gun.
Right here. Enemy down. Last members down.
And then there as well. We stick to one of them. See, that's always the best way to go about it with these frag grenades. And then you pop the other one, yeah, and get that Havoc shot on them. And try all you like. But I've got peace on 20 hand point rounds. You're not doing it. Okay, so combination number 3 is the Longbow and the R99. Now, I could not do this list without including a sniper rifle, but I had to pick one of the sniper rifles. Now, the Sentinel is the new one to the game, but I still think the Longbow, although it's had a few little nerfs, is still the best one purely for its rate of fire. The Sentinel is just a little bit too slow for me, and if you miss your shot with it, you are pretty much screwed as the enemy tries to run away. Whereas with the Longbow, you can shoot relatively fast there. I mean, that is not a huge time between them. And you can see that 55 on a body shot and 118 on a headshot. That's not too much different to the Sentinel in terms of how many shots it actually takes to kill somebody. The attachments to this are pretty obvious. Use whichever scope you like. Personally, I think the 4 to 8 times is best. I actually prefer it even over the digital threat one as well, because the 4 to 10 times is a little bit too much for me, but 4 to 8 times seems to be near enough perfect. Now, our secondary weapon here is the R99. Obviously, you're going to want to try and get as many attachments as possible, but the extended mag is what you're really focused on this, because this thing just fires so fast and will absolutely eat through the position. So the R99 is already well known for being one of the best guns in the game, and has been since the start as well. It will mow people down at range. You are going to be wanting to practice your hip firing with it as well, so you can move around quicker. As you can see, I definitely practice on mine. I'm doing a good job of hitting the targets behind him and not the actual dummy himself. Now, the sight on the R99 here, I've gone for the one-time H-gun. The reason for this, and you might be tempted to take maybe a digital threat instead, but it's because if you're getting into a close range firefight, you're not going to want just your R99 by your side. Basically, when people get into a middle distance, like the dummies are here, you're not going to really want your 4x sight on the Longbow. It's okay, but it's not going to be absolutely amazing. Instead, what you're going to do is our little trick from earlier. You are going to transfer your submachine gun, your R99 sight, by pressing X onto the sniper sight there. You can see our R99 one has gone blank. That one has gone into your inventory as long as you've got a space left on there. And you can see now with the Longbow, we have the one-time H-Dog. It just helps us be able to see and use it as a relatively effective mid-range weapon. You can see that a couple of headshots will kill anybody. Yeah, there you go, as long as you get your aim correctly. Now, the R99, you think left without sight, but this skin on the R99, if you have it, has a really good iron sight anyway. I'd say even maybe better than the actual HCOG. It is pretty accurate with those and pretty easy to see as well. However, even if you don't have this skin, any old skin, really with the R99, if you're shooting them that close range, it doesn't really matter too much about having sights on it, to be honest with you. It's not going to affect your life that much. However, the sights on the Longbow are pretty important, because you can see there, if I just take those off, that the normal sights with the Longbow are way harder to see things on. You've got a lot of things clunking up the screen there. The other thing that you're going to be wanting to practice with this one is you are going to be wanting to practice the recoil with the R99. Now, the way to do that is to use these things in the firing range. You can start at the very first one, and you're going to be wanting to basically try and kill the dummies in one clip, and then once you manage to do it 3 times in a row, move on to the next section, and again, and you can see that, 1 clip done. So after that 3 times, you'll move to the next section. And you're going to keep going back as far as you can do, really, up until you're probably about here. We'll do it. There. Didn't quite get him in 1 clip and ran out of ammo as well. So I'd have to practice that one again. And that's it for that combination there, really. As you can see, it's going to be effective from all sorts of ranges anyway. The Longbow really gives you that helping hand with there, picking off teams, getting a lot of damage from a distance. And then obviously the R99 for any close-up work, as well as maybe the Longbow to help yourself out at that mid-range if you need it. So without further ado, we're going to go on to the clips of these ones in action, and then we'll move on to weapon combo number 4. Okay, so combination number 4 is the R301 and the Prowler. You can see there the attachments we have on these guns. And obviously you're not going to get those straight away, but these guns are both pretty good with blank slates anyway when you've got no attachments on them, so they'll do you until you manage to find some decent ones. Now I've gone for a light weapon and a heavy weapon here because it doesn't matter if you can't find light ammo or heavy ammo, as long as you can find one of them, basically, as well as the attachments as well. As long as you can find a light extended mag or a heavy extended mag, you don't necessarily need to find both of them. You're going to have a pretty functional weapon with either one. Now the R301 here is going to be our long to mid-range weapon. It is long range when you have the anvil receiver and you go into single fire. You can see here the reason why we're using the 2x bruise is to give that little bit of extra range on there. And anvil receiver, 70 damage on a headshot with it. Even if you don't hit the head though, if you go for the body instead, it's still 35 damage. Well, what if you can't find an anvil receiver? This thing in single fire, even without one, I'm just going to take it off there and switch back to single fire. It shoots pretty quick in single fire, almost as fast as you can pull the trigger, basically. As long as you can pull the trigger quick, this thing is firing quick. So even at a range, although it's not doing very much damage, you can be pretty accurate with this thing. You don't need to worry about the recoil as much. However, once you get down to mid-range, you can switch it back to fully auto. The recoil is pretty handy still. They have nerfed it a little bit. They have made it a little bit random, but it is not really bad whatsoever, and the 2x size there makes it pretty easy to get anybody at a mid-range. Now, onto the Prowler, the thing that you're really looking for here is the select fire. So you're going to go from this burst fire here, where you can see the recoil is pretty high. I'm not doing a great deal there to try and counteract it, but even if I do, it can be quite hard to hit things with it in quick bursts, especially if they're moving around. Whereas if you get this select fire and turn it onto fully automatic, this thing is an absolute beast. I'm going to go ahead and say that it is better at doing what the R99 does than the R99 is. And you can see here, I've got the digital threat on it. Again, you can put whatever sights really you want on it. I'd recommend obviously nothing above 1x though, but the digital threat's there just in case obviously you get any Bangalore smokes or caustic tracks, etc. This thing as well, hipfire, is still a laser beam. Near enough. Yeah, that's a pretty decent range with hipfire on there. And you can even aim down sights if you want that little bit of extra accuracy if they're not moving around very much. But if they are moving around, like if you are quite close to them, then hipfire is definitely the way to go because it is. So there isn't a great deal more to say about the R301 and the Prowler other than the fact that you're going to be using the R301 as your main weapon at most time. You switch to that Prowler when you don't want to be reloading the R301. Like you can quickly switch to the Prowler and suddenly you are going down more people with it. And training dummies there. But that's it for the R301 and the Prowler. I'm going to head to some clips now of them both in action.
They spotted me. Portal's ready. I downed him. Full squad's down.
Okay, so our next combination here, our last one, is the Flatline and the Peacekeeper. Now, immediately, looking at that, you can see the 2 to 4 times sight on the Flatline is a little bit jaunty. If you don't like it, switch to a 2 times cruiser, that's absolutely fine. I've just got the 4 times to give that extra range on it and give this class a little bit more utility. Now, the anvil receiver is what's really key in here to helping us fight those long-range battles. Once you've got anvil receiver on the 4 times scope here, or any scope really, you can switch to single fire and you can hit 86 damage on a headshot there, and it is actually 40 body shot as well. You can see quite a bit of damage there. You can definitely fight some fights at long range using this weapon. Let's see if we just hit the targets all the way up there. You're gonna have to aim a little bit higher than that. There you go. So you can actually hit them once you get a little bit of a better finding for your range. Now obviously the 2 times scope here can be hard to control in fully auto, even at a mid range. Let's try it on somebody that is actually fully armored once he's respawned. There you go. So it can be a little hard to control. The Flatline has quite a bit of side-to-side recoil anyway. But what you're going to be doing is basically damaging them enough with it. You might want to practice it in the firing range. But the 2 times scope, you should be able to get used to it with a little bit of practice, like we were with the R99 earlier on. Now, once you get really close though, this scope is going to be a little bit too much sometimes. So what you're going to want to do is also learn how to hip fire this thing. Now the Flatline is actually pretty potent at hip firing. And the reason why we got that Peacekeeper on there as a secondary is because the Peacekeeper in its own right, I could not have a weapon combination list without it. It has been one of the best guns from the very start of the game, no matter what nerfs it has had. And you can see here, any kind of blast, that's 102 damage. People are dead in 2 shots with this thing. So if you are shooting somebody close range with this flatline, say for instance, a typical combat scenario, you've got them mid-range, you fire off a couple of bullets, actually got a few amazing headshots on there. So let's try it with this one. You can see here, headshot 38 damage. That's what happened with that last one. That's why he depleted so fast. But if you manage to get a few of their armors gone, you bring out that Peacekeeper, and you can see there, 100 damage, and then finish him off with the last one as well. Basically, once the armor is broke with the flatline, you can finish them in 1 shot with this Peacekeeper. Now, there's a big question on the Peacekeeper, amongst some of the pros anyway, is whether to use the choke or not. Now, the choke on the Peacekeeper here, it gives you this option of being able to shoot a bit longer range, but it has been nerfed. However, you can see, if you are accurate with it, you can do quite a bit of damage. And I would advise the choke for the sole reason that if somebody is trying to peek you around a corner, you can get your Peacekeeper ready, like this, charged up, and then you can peek around the corner, blast them with that, and then you come in with your flatline to finish them. And you can see how quick that can be and how lethal that can be as a combination as well. Now, the reason why some people are against it is because they prefer the spread of the weapon and think they don't like basically that it begins charging and it kind of can give you a position away when you are trying to peek corners and things like that. If you are closer range, say for instance this, once you get close range, they quite like that spread rather than being able to hit more accurate shots like that. But it's up to you on that choice. I would say this combination, use the choke on it, and you can start encounters off, basically hiding behind cover, and then quickly peek, fire off a shot, and then you can go in the flatline. Or you can even stay behind cover, of course, as well. But you can see here, quite a powerful combination, even at close range, when you've got the hip fire with the flatline, and then finish them off with the Peacekeeper, as long as it's reloaded, of course.
Give my shield. Got our squad mate's banner. Kill confirmed.
I hope you liked it anyway, and please like, subscribe, comment if you like this kind of things. It's a little bit different to what I normally do, and let me know if you want to see any more of it, basically. But other than that, well, peace out and enjoy playing some Apex.